Your manhood is too big. I don't want you.
Your manhood is too big. I don't want you. Seo-yoon's words cut through the Christmas party like a blade through silk. 200 guests froze mid-conversation, champagne glasses suspended in air. K-pop remixes of Christmas carols died on someone's phone. Everything stopped. Wareem Kim stood there in his tailored Tom Ford suit, 6'3" of frozen humiliation, watching his fiancée storm toward the elevator. She didn't look back. The diamond ring he'd given her 6 months ago glinted under the fairy lights as she jabbed the button. Gone. Someone coughed. A woman whispered. Wareem felt every eye on him, felt the weight of their stares, their pity, their judgment. Seoul's wealthiest businessman, the architectural genius who'd rebuilt half of Busan after the 2022 floods, reduced to this. A man rejected at his own engagement party because his body was wrong. Hey besties, Christmas is almost here, and I'm glad we're going to be celebrating it with stories like this. If you're new here, kindly like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on the celebrations that will be happening here. Wareem walked. Past the ice sculptures shaped like reindeer, past the catering staff in their Santa hats, past colleagues who suddenly found their shoes fascinating. The December air hit him like a fist when he pushed through the service exit. Cold and sharp and merciless. The back alley was dark except for a single streetlight. Wareem found a concrete step near the dumpsters and sat, head in his hands. Christmas decorations hung from the neighboring buildings, twinkling cheerfully, mocking his misery. Somewhere a church bell rang, calling people to midnight mass. He'd proposed to Seo-yoon exactly 1 year ago, Christmas Eve, in front of that same church. "Excuse me, are you okay?" The voice was warm, concerned, accented. Wareem looked up to see a black woman standing a few feet away, wrapped in a burgundy coat that looked expensive but worn. Her natural hair was pulled back in a loose bun, her dark eyes kind. She held a half-empty glass of wine. "I saw what happened upstairs. I'm so sorry." She spoke carefully, like she was worried her Korean might not be good enough. It was perfect, just flavored with something else. Lagos, he'd learn later. "I know this is probably the last thing you want, but sitting out here in December without a coat seems like a terrible idea." Wareem stared at her. "You speak Korean." "I live here. Been in Busan 3 years now." She stepped closer, hesitant. "I'm Nora Okoro. I was at the party with the Daewoo medical team. We were invited because we're partnering with your foundation on that children's center project." He remembered now. The music therapy initiative. His company had donated the building. This woman, this stranger, was the lead therapist they'd hired. He'd seen her name on documents, never her face. "You should go back inside," Wareem said, voice flat. "This isn't your concern." "Maybe not." Nora sat down beside him anyway, on the cold concrete, in her nice coat. "But you look like someone who could use a friend right now, even a stranger friend. And honestly, that party was terrible. Too many people pretending to be happy." "This is better." Despite everything, Wareem almost smiled. "Better? Sitting in an alley in December? Better than being humiliated in front of 200 people while Christmas carols play in the background, yes." She said it matter-of-factly, no pity, just truth. "That woman who left, she didn't deserve you. You don't know me. I know you built the Haeundae Community Center that serves 500 families. I know you designed it so every classroom has natural light and the colors are calming for traumatized children. I know you refused to cut costs even when your board insisted. That tells me enough." Wareem looked at her properly then. She was maybe 28, with an open face and quick eyes that seemed to take in everything. Her wine glass was printed with a snowflake pattern. "She wasn't wrong to leave," he heard himself say. "I have a medical condition. I've had it my whole life. It makes intimacy impossible. 3 women have tried. All 3 ended up hurt, bleeding, in emergency rooms. Seo-yoon was just the first one brave enough to say it publicly before trying." Nora's expression didn't change. No shock, no disgust, just listening. I thought if I told her beforehand, if we were honest, if we loved each other enough, it would be different. But tonight, she said she couldn't do it, couldn't even try. And I don't blame her. His voice cracked. I'm built wrong. Better she realizes now than after we're married. You're not built wrong, Nora said quietly. You're built differently. And that woman wasn't brave, she was cruel. Brave would have been having that conversation in private, not screaming it at a Christmas party for everyone to hear. She was scared. So were you, but you didn't humiliate her. Nora finished her wine, set the glass down gently. Look, I don't know you, and you don't know me, but I do know something about being different in ways that matter. I'm a Black woman living in Korea, working in healthcare. Every single day, someone makes assumptions about what I can or can't do. And every single day, I have to prove I'm just as capable, just as professional, just as worthy. Being different doesn't mean being less. It just means the world hasn't figured out how to love you properly yet. Warim felt something shift in his chest. This stranger, this woman from Lagos sitting beside him in a Busan alley on Christmas Eve, understood something fundamental that no one else had. Why did you come after me? He asked. Nora smiled, sad and knowing. Because 6 months ago, my mother died. She was everything to me. Raised me alone after my father left when I was 3. And when she died, I ran. Left Lagos, left everything, took the first international job I could find. Ended up here in Busan, working temporary contracts, because I can't face going home. I recognized the look on your face when you walked out. That look of someone who's been running from something painful for so long, they don't remember what it feels like to stop. You're still running? Every single day. But tonight, watching you, I thought maybe we could both stop. Just for a minute. Just to breathe. They sat in silence, the December night wrapping around them. Church bells rang again, marking the hour. Christmas Eve becoming Christmas morning. Above them, the party continued, muffled music and laughter floating down. Come on, Nora said finally, standing and offering her hand. Let's get you somewhere warm. Not back to the party, somewhere else. There's a 24-hour cafe near Gwangali Beach. Makes the best hatiak in Busan. We can sit, you can process, and when the sun comes up, you can decide what to do next. Warim looked at her hand, small and steady. He took it. They walked to Gwangali in silence, past decorated storefronts and late-night Christmas shoppers. The cafe was nearly empty, just an elderly couple in the corner and a university student asleep over her textbooks. They ordered hot teok and coffee, sat at a window table overlooking the dark beach. Tell me about Lagos, Warim said, surprising himself. So Nora did. She told him about growing up in Seoul, her mother's tiny apartment that always smelled like jollof rice and coconut oil. About learning to play guitar from a neighbor, discovering she could use music to help kids who couldn't speak. About her mother's cancer diagnosis, the 18 months of treatments, the hope that kept getting crushed, the final phone call. She died on a Sunday, Nora said, staring into her coffee. I just finished my shift at a children's hospital in Ikeja. I was supposed to visit her that evening, but I got called into an emergency session with a nonverbal child, told myself I'd see her the next day. Except there wasn't a next day. She was gone by the time I arrived. Nora, I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry. But sorry doesn't bring her back. Sorry doesn't make me brave enough to go home and sort through her things and face the fact that I'm alone now. She looked up, eyes bright with unshed tears. So I took this job in Busan, told myself it was a career opportunity, but really, I was running, still am. What was her name? Chima. It means God knows in Igbo. Nora smiled through the tears. She used to make this soup, egusi soup with stockfish and ugu leaves, every Saturday night, and we'd sit in the living room and she'd tell me stories about my father, even though he was gone. She never made him a villain, just said some people aren't built for staying. She taught me that leaving doesn't always mean not loving. Warim felt his throat tighten. My parents are still alive, but I haven't seen them in 3 years. Not since I told them about my condition, about why my engagement to my high school girlfriend ended. My father said I was an embarrassment. My mother cried. They suggested I just accept being alone, focus on the business, stop trying to have a normal life. So you isolated yourself. I built a house on the cliffs outside Busan. Beautiful, empty, perfect for one person who never plans to let anyone in again. He laughed bitterly. Until Seo Yoon. I thought she was different. Thought she loved me enough that it wouldn't matter. Maybe she did love you. Maybe she just couldn't handle the reality. Nora's voice was gentle. That doesn't make you unlovable. It makes her human. What if everyone's human? What if no one can handle it? Then you haven't met the right person yet. She reached across the table, covered his hand with hers. I don't know you, Worm Kim, but I know you're sitting here at 2 in the morning on Christmas, talking to a stranger about your deepest pain. That takes courage. Whatever that woman said upstairs, she was wrong. You're not too much. You're exactly enough. Something broke open in Worm's chest. He turned his hand over, threaded his fingers through hers, and cried. Really cried, for the first time since his engagement ended. For the humiliation, yes, but also for the years of loneliness, the certainty that he'd die alone, the fear that his body made him unworthy of love. Nora held his hand and didn't look away, didn't offer empty platitudes, just sat with him in his grief. When he finally stopped, the sun was starting to rise over Gwangali Beach, pink and gold spreading across the water. Christmas morning, new and clean and possible. Can I tell you something? Nora said quietly. Something I haven't told anyone? Yes. I came to Busan with a plan. Work for 6 months, save money, go back to Lagos and deal with my mother's estate. But it's been 3 years. 6 temporary contracts. I keep extending, keep avoiding, keep running. And yesterday, I got offered a permanent position at Seoul National Hospital, Director of Pediatric Music Therapy. Everything I've worked toward my entire career. That's incredible. It is. But it means moving to Seoul, leaving Busan, leaving the only life I've built here. She paused. And something in me is terrified that if I take that job, if I plant roots anywhere, I'll have to stop running. I'll have to face the fact that my mother is gone, and I'm alone, and I have to build a life without her. When do you have to decide? February 1st. 2 months. She looked at him, really looked at him. I keep thinking maybe I need a reason to stay, or a reason to go. I just don't know which. Worm squeezed her hand. I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you this. Running only works for so long. Eventually you get tired. Eventually you have to stop and face whatever you've been avoiding. Is that what you're doing, facing things? He thought about the house on the cliffs, 3 years of isolation, the walls he'd built. I'm trying to figure out if I want to. They left the cafe as Busan woke up. Christmas morning, the city quiet except for early churchgoers and delivery trucks. Nora insisted on walking him to his car, parked still at the party venue. Will you be okay? She asked. I don't know, but I'm better than I was 4 hours ago. He pulled out his phone. Can I have your number? I'd like to talk again, if you want. I want. She entered her number, handed his phone back. Call me, or text, whenever you need someone who understands running. You too, whenever you need someone who understands being different. They stood there in the December morning, 2 people who'd found each other in the worst moment, connected by pain and honesty. Merry Christmas, Wurim! Merry Christmas, Nora! She walked away, and he watched her go. This stranger who'd somehow made him feel less alone than he had in years. 3 days later, Wurim was sitting in his office on the 42nd floor of the Kim Development Building when his assistant buzzed. Sir, there's a Miss Okoro here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment. His heart jumped. Send her in. Nora appeared in his doorway looking nervous, wearing jeans and a yellow sweater that made her skin glow. She carried a guitar case. I know this is unexpected, she said quickly, but I've been thinking about you since Christmas. And I was working with a client this morning, a 6-year-old boy who's nonverbal after trauma, and he responded to music in this incredible way. And I thought, you need to see this. You need to understand what your buildings make possible. What are you asking? Come to a session with me, tomorrow. Not as a donor, not as a board member, just as someone who might understand why this work matters. Wareem hadn't left his office building in 3 days, hadn't wanted to face the world after Christmas Eve, but something in Nora's face made him say, "What time?" 2 o'clock, Daewoo Medical Center, 3rd floor therapy wing. I'll be there. The next day, Wareem showed up at exactly 2. The therapy wing was painted in soft blues and greens, with wide windows and natural light. Everything he'd specified in the design. But seeing it in use, seeing children in the waiting area, parents looking exhausted but hopeful, it hit differently. Nora met him at the elevator. "Thank you for coming. I know this is hard. I haven't been around people since the party. These aren't people. They're children who need help. They won't judge you. They won't even know who you are." She led him down a hallway. The boy's name is Minsu. He's 6. Witnessed domestic violence. Hasn't spoken in 8 months. Traditional therapy isn't working, but music reaches him. She opened a door to a small room with a piano, some drums, a shelf of instruments. A little boy sat on the floor, rocking slightly. His mother stood nearby, looking worn thin. "Minsu," Nora said gently, kneeling down. "I brought someone special today. His name is Wareem. He's going to listen while we play. Is that okay?" Minsu didn't respond, just kept rocking. Nora pulled out her guitar, began playing something simple, a children's song, but somehow she made it transcendent, soft and safe and inviting. Minsu stopped rocking, looked up. Wareem stood in the corner, barely breathing, watching this woman work magic. Nora sang, her voice warm and steady. Korean lyrics about stars and dreams. Minsu's eyes followed her fingers on the guitar. After a full verse, something miraculous happened. Minsu hummed, just one note, matching her melody. But his mother gasped, tears streaming. Nora kept playing, kept singing, and Minsu kept humming. For 10 minutes, they made music together. Not words, but communication, understanding, healing. When the session ended, Minsu's mother hugged Nora, sobbing. "That's the first sound he's made in months, the first time he's engaged with anything." After they left, Wareem couldn't speak, just stood there, overwhelmed. "This is why I do this work," Nora said quietly. "This is why your buildings matter. You created a space where that little boy felt safe enough to make a sound, where his mother felt hope for the first time in months. Architecture isn't just about beauty or function. It's about healing." "I'd forgotten that," Worm admitted. "I used to design with purpose. After the floods, I built community centers and schools and spaces for people to rebuild their lives. But these past 3 years, I've been designing remotely, sending blueprints, letting other people handle construction. I stopped being present." "Why?" "Because being present means being seen, and being seen means risking rejection." Nora stepped closer. "What if someone saw you and didn't reject you? What if someone saw all of you and chose to stay?" "You don't know what you're saying." "Then help me understand." Her voice was steady. "Tell me about your condition. The medical reality, not the fear. Help me understand what we're actually dealing with." So Wareem told her. Everything. The diagnosis at 14, the medical term he hated saying, the specialists and treatments that hadn't worked, the 3 relationships that ended in emergency rooms, the certainty that he was physically incapable of normal intimacy. Nora listened without flinching. When he finished, she asked, "Have you ever worked with a specialist in sexual health? Not just a urologist, but someone who understands the psychological and physical aspects?" "Years ago, before Seoul. She said there were options, but they'd take time and commitment." "And Seoul wasn't willing to commit." "I never gave her the chance. I was too afraid to ask." Nora pulled out her phone, searched for something, showed him a screen. Dr. Ji Hai Park. She's one of the best sexual health specialists in Korea. My colleague worked with her for a patient with severe trauma. She's patient, kind, and she doesn't give up on complex cases. Nora, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. Let me help you figure this out. Not because I pity you or because I'm trying to fix you, but because I think you deserve better than spending your life alone, convinced you're broken. Wareem felt something dangerous bloom in his chest. Hope. Why are you doing this? You barely know me. Because Christmas morning, you told me running only works for so long. And I realized you were talking about yourself too. We're both running, Wareem. Maybe we could try standing still together. See what happens? What if I hurt you? What if you don't? She smiled, tentative and brave. What if we try and it's hard and complicated but possible? What if I'm not Seo Yoon? What if I'm someone who can handle difficult? I'm terrified. Me too, but I'd rather be terrified trying than safe and alone. Wareem made a decision that changed everything. Okay, let's try. But slowly. I need time. We have time. They left the hospital together, stepping into the January afternoon. Busan spread below them, glittering and alive. Two broken people choosing to be brave. They started meeting every afternoon at 2 o'clock. It became their ritual, their sacred time. Sometimes at coffee shops in Nampodong, sometimes at the beach when the January wind wasn't too brutal, sometimes just walking through Yeongdusan Park, watching winter fade into early spring. They talked about everything. Nora told him about Lagos, about growing up in a city that never slept, where generators hummed through power outages and street vendors sold suya at midnight. About her mother's church, where gospel music shook the windows and everyone danced. About learning guitar from Pastor Emmanuel, who said music was God's language when words failed. Wareem told her about growing up wealthy in Gangnam, about the pressure of being the only son, the expectations that crushed before he even understood them, about discovering architecture at 15, realizing he could build spaces that made people feel things, about the freedom he'd felt designing the Haeundae Community Center, the purpose that had driven him before fear took over. On their third week, Nora brought her guitar to his office. Play something, he said. She played a Fela Kuti song, transformed it into something softer. Her voice filled his office, rich and textured, and Wareem felt something loosen in his chest. When she finished, he found himself at his desk, pulling up architectural software. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Designing something. I don't know what yet, but your music makes me want to build." She came to stand behind him, watched his hands move across the screen. What does it feel like? Creating spaces? Like conducting an orchestra, every element has to work together. Light, sound, texture, flow. When it's right, when someone walks into a building and feels exactly what you intended them to feel, it's magic. "Show me." So he did. Pulled up the plans for the Daewoo Medical Center, walked her through every choice. Why the ceilings were high in the waiting rooms to reduce anxiety, why the therapy rooms faced east for morning light, why the colors shifted from cool blues in reception to warm greens in treatment spaces. "You're not just an architect," Nora said softly. "You're a healer. You just use buildings instead of music." Something shifted between them that afternoon. An understanding, an intimacy that had nothing to do with physical touch. They were creating something together, some hybrid of her music and his spaces, and it felt important. By February, they'd seen each other 23 times. Wareem counted. Each meeting felt essential, necessary, like breathing. And slowly, carefully, they began to touch. Hands brushing when they walked, sitting close enough that their shoulders pressed together, brief hugs goodbye that lasted a little longer each time. On February 14th, Valentine's Day, Wareem showed up at Nora's apartment with Korean fried chicken and soju. She'd told him she was spending the evening alone, avoiding the couples flooding the streets. "I thought you might want company," he said when she opened the door. Her apartment was small, neat, filled with instruments and medical textbooks and photographs of Lagos. It smelled like shea butter and jasmine. She'd pulled her hair into twists, wore an oversized sweater, and no makeup. She looked beautiful. They ate on her floor, sharing chicken and stories. The soju made them brave. I called Dr. Park, Worm admitted. Have an appointment next week. Nora's face lit up. That's incredible. How do you feel? Terrified, hopeful, nauseous. He laughed. All of it at once. She specializes in cases like mine. Said there are therapeutic options, medical interventions, ways to approach intimacy that aren't just the standard expectation. Will you let me come with you? To the appointment? You'd do that? I want to understand everything. I want to know what we're working with, what's possible. She reached for his hand. I'm not going anywhere, Warim. I know you're waiting for me to run, but I won't. How can you be sure? Because every day I choose to show up is proof. Because I'm falling in love with you, and love makes you brave. The words hung in the air, huge and terrifying and true. Nora, I don't know if I can give you what you need. Physically, I might never be able to. She put her fingers over his lips. Stop. Stop deciding what I need. I need you. Your mind, your heart, your terrible jokes, the way you cry when you see Minsu make progress. I need your morning texts and your architectural rants, and the way you look at me like I'm something precious. Everything else, we'll figure out together. I love you, Warim whispered. I've loved you since Christmas morning, when you told me being different doesn't mean being less. Then kiss me. He did, soft and careful, and full of years of fear and hope. She kissed him back, patient and certain, and for the first time in his life, Warim felt like maybe, just maybe, he could have this. They pulled apart, foreheads touching, both breathing hard. Too much? He asked. Perfect. The appointment with Dr. Park changed everything. She was mid-50s, warm, clinical in the best way. She reviewed Warim's medical history, asked questions that made him squirm, then looked at both of them with kind eyes. Here's the reality, she said. Yes, Warim has significant anatomical disproportion. Yes, standard penetrative intercourse would likely cause injury without proper preparation. But this is not an impossible situation. It requires time, medical intervention, communication, and commitment from both partners. She turned to Nora. You'll need pelvic floor therapy. We'll start with graduated dilators, work on flexibility and accommodation. It's not comfortable, but it's not unbearable. Think of it like physical therapy for a specific purpose. Are you willing to do that work? Absolutely, Nora said without hesitation. Warim, you'll work with me on managing the psychological trauma you've carried. Fear causes physical tension, which makes everything harder. We need to address the shame and anxiety before we address the physical mechanics. And both of you need to understand that intimacy looks different for everyone. What works for you might not look like what works for other couples. And that's okay. She gave them referrals, exercises, a timeline. 6 months of preparation, maybe longer. No guarantees, but possibility. Walking out of the clinic, Warim felt lighter than he had in years. 6 months, Nora said. That takes us to August. You'll still be here in August? You haven't taken the sole position? She stopped walking, turned to face him. I turned it down last week. Told them I'm building a life in Busan. Applied for a permanent position at Daewoo instead. Nora, you didn't have to. I did. Not for you, for me. Because I realized I'm tired of running. Tired of temporary. I want roots. I want a life that feels real. She stepped closer. And I want you in it. If you'll have me. Warim pulled her close, buried his face in her neck, felt her arms wrap around him. They stood there on a busy Busan street, while people rushed past, holding each other like lifelines. March brought rain and new beginnings. Nora started pelvic floor therapy with Dr. Park's colleague, doing exercises that were uncomfortable and awkward and necessary. She told Warim about her sessions with brutal honesty, demystifying the process, making it less scary. Wareem started therapy too, unpacking 3 years of isolation and shame. Learned that his body wasn't wrong, just different. Learned that the women who'd left weren't bad people, just unprepared. Learned to forgive himself for being afraid. They explored intimacy slowly, carefully. Kissing that turned heated, touching through clothes, learning what felt good, what felt safe. Wareem was terrified of moving too fast, of hurting her. Nora was patient, but insistent. "You're not made of glass," she told him one evening in his car, parked at Guangali Beach. "And neither am I. We can try things, we can stop if it doesn't work. But you have to stop treating me like I'll break. What if I hurt you? Then we'll deal with it, together. But Wareem, you can't live your whole life avoiding risk. That's not living. That's just existing." They got better at communicating, at saying, "This feels good," and "That's too much," and "Can we try this instead?" It was vulnerable and awkward, and sometimes funny, but it was theirs. In April, Minsu spoke his first word. Not in session, but at home, according to his mother. He'd pointed at a guitar on TV and said, "Nora." Clear as day. His mother called Nora sobbing. Nora called Wareem sobbing. They met at the medical center and cried together in her office, overwhelmed by the proof that their work mattered. "This is what we're building," Nora said, holding him. "Spaces where healing happens. Your architecture, my music. We're making miracles together." That's when the idea started forming. A center, a real comprehensive facility, combining music therapy with trauma-informed architecture. Spaces designed specifically for healing, funded by Wareem's foundation, staffed by Nora's team. They spent weeks planning, drawing up proposals, arguing over details. It became their shared dream, bigger than either of them alone. In May, typhoon season started early. The forecast predicted massive storms, flooding, potential evacuations. Wareem's assistant called him at home. "Sir, the news says Typhoon Minho is Category 4, heading straight for Busan. You need to evacuate to Seoul." "What about the medical center?" "They're evacuating patients to inland hospitals. Staff are securing the building." Wareem hung up, immediately called Nora. "Where are you?" "Still at Daewoo. We're moving the last kids out. I'm helping pack equipment. You need to evacuate. Get to Seoul, stay with friends, get somewhere safe." "What about you?" "I have a house built for storms. Reinforced walls, backup generators. I'll be fine." "Alone? You're planning to ride out a Category 4 typhoon alone?" "Nora, I've done this before." "Not since you met me." Her voice was firm. "I'm coming to you. Give me your address." "That's insane. The roads will flood. You could get trapped." "Then I'll get trapped with you. I'm not letting you face this alone." They argued for 10 minutes. She won. She always won. Nora arrived at his house just as the rain started, carrying a backpack and her guitar. Wareem's house was perched on the cliffs overlooking the East Sea, all glass and steel and dramatic angles. Beautiful and sterile, and obviously designed for solitude. "You live here alone?" Nora asked, looking around. "For 3 years, yes." "It's gorgeous, and the saddest house I've ever seen." "Sad how?" "No photographs, no color, no evidence anyone actually lives here. It's like a museum to loneliness." She wasn't wrong. Wareem looked at his house through her eyes and saw what he'd built. A prison dressed as a palace. The storm hit at midnight. Rain pounded the windows, wind screamed around the house. The ocean below churned black and furious. The power cut out despite the generators. They sat in darkness, listening to the world tear itself apart. Nora was terrified. She told him about Lagos, about being 7 when floods swept through Surulere, watching water rise in their apartment, her mother holding her while they climbed to the roof. About the neighbors who didn't make it out. About the nightmares she still had. "Every storm feels like that night," she whispered, curled against him on the couch. Every storm makes me 7 years old again. Worm held her, felt her shaking. I'm here. You're safe. This house has survived worse. Tell me something, anything, distract me. So he talked. About designing the house. About every calculation and choice. About the first night he'd spent here alone, how free he'd felt. How that freedom had curdled into loneliness so gradually he hadn't noticed. I built this house to hide, he admitted. Built it so I'd never have to risk getting hurt again. But all I did was guarantee I'd be alone. You're not alone now, because you forced your way in. Someone had to. She turned in his arms, found his face in the darkness. Wareem, I need to tell you something. Something I haven't told anyone. Okay. My mother's house in Lagos. I haven't been back since the funeral. Haven't dealt with her belongings. Haven't faced any of it. It's been sitting empty for 3 years. My aunt keeps calling, saying I need to either come home or sell it. But I can't. I can't walk into that house knowing she's not there. What are you afraid of? That if I go back, if I sort through her things and close that chapter, it means she's really gone. Like sorting her belongings makes her death real in a way the funeral didn't. Her voice broke. And I'm afraid of how alone I'll feel. She was all I had. Now there's just me. There's me, Worm said fiercely. You have me. Do I? Really? Because we've been dancing around this for months. The therapy, the preparation, the slow build. But Worm, what if it doesn't work? What if we do everything right and it's still impossible? Will you still want me then? Yes. Absolutely yes. Nora, I don't need penetrative sex to want you. I need you. Your laugh, your mind, your music. Your terrible habit of eating all the kimchi and leaving none for me. I need you exactly as we are right now. Everything else is just details. You mean that? I've never meant anything more. She kissed him then, deep and desperate. The storm raged outside, but they barely noticed. They were creating their own weather, their own world. They fell asleep tangled together on the couch, holding each other through the worst of the typhoon. When dawn came, gray and exhausted, the storm had passed. They stood at the windows, looking out at the damage. Fallen trees, debris everywhere. But the house stood strong. We survived, Nora said. We did. She turned to him, eyes serious. I need to go to Lagos, face my mother's house, deal with everything I've been avoiding. Will you come with me? To Lagos? Nora, I haven't left Korea in 3 years. I know, I'm terrified too. But I need to do this, and I need you with me. Please. Wareem thought about the man he'd been at Christmas, humiliated and broken, sitting in an alley. Thought about the man he was now, stronger but still scared. Nora had given him courage. Maybe he could do the same for her. When do we leave? They flew to Lagos in June, the height of rainy season. Worm had forgotten what humidity felt like, the way air could be thick enough to swim through. The airport was chaos, all noise and color and movement. Nora navigated it like coming home, bargaining with taxi drivers in Yoruba, laughing at Wareem's overwhelmed face. Welcome to Lagos, she said. Try not to die of sensory overload. Her mother's apartment was in Surulere, a modest 2-bedroom in a building that had seen better decades. Nora stood outside for a full 5 minutes before she could make herself use the key. Inside, everything was exactly as her mother had left it. Crossword puzzles on the table, slippers by the door, the smell of shea butter, and memories. Nora broke down completely, and Worm held her while she cried 3 years of grief. They spent a week sorting through Chima's life. Clothes to donate, photographs to keep, recipe cards in her handwriting that made Nora cry all over again. Her mother's guitar, battered and beloved, that Nora couldn't bear to part with. She taught me to play on this, Nora said, holding it. Every Sunday after church, she'd make jollof rice and we'd sit on the balcony and play. She had a terrible voice, but it didn't matter. It was our time. Tell me about her, Worm said. Everything. I want to know the woman who raised you." So Nora did. Talked for hours about Chima, her strength and humor and faith, about how she'd worked 2 jobs to send Nora to university, how she'd never complained, how she'd taught Nora that being black and female meant being twice as good and half as recognized, but that shouldn't stop you from trying. "She would have loved you," Nora said. "She would have seen past the fear to the man underneath. She was good at that, seeing people's souls." They met Nora's aunt, who fed them enough jollof and pounded yam to burst. Met her cousins, her childhood friends, the pastor who'd taught her guitar. Wareem was the only Korean in every room, but he didn't feel out of place. They welcomed him, asked about his intentions, teased Nora about finally bringing someone home. On their last night, they went to Bar Beach at sunset. The Atlantic was wild and beautiful, nothing like the East Sea in Busan. They walked along the sand, waves crashing beside them. "Thank you for coming with me," Nora said. "I couldn't have done this alone." "You're stronger than you think." "Maybe. But I'm stronger with you." She stopped walking, turned to face him. "Wareem, I've made a decision. I'm going to split my time. 6 months in Busan, 6 months in Lagos. Build the therapy center in Busan, but also start a program here. There are so many kids who need this work. I can do both." "That's brilliant. I'll help. We can design spaces here too. Partner with local organizations." "You'd do that? Build in Lagos?" "I'd build anywhere if it meant creating something with you." They kissed on the beach while Lagos buzzed around them, 2 people from different worlds building something entirely their own. They returned to Busan in July with new purpose. The plans for the therapy center expanded to include a sister facility in Lagos. Wareem threw himself into the designs, creating spaces that honored both cultures. Nora built curriculum, hired staff, prepared for launches in both cities. But beneath the excitement, tension was building. They'd been doing the therapy, the exercises, the preparation for 8 months. Every medical appointment confirmed progress. Dr. Park was optimistic, yet they hadn't tried, hadn't taken that final step. Wareem was terrified. The closer they got to possibility, the more his old fears resurfaced. What if he hurt her? What if all the preparation wasn't enough? What if he lost her the same way he'd lost everyone else? Nora felt it too. The weight of expectation, the pressure of months of build-up. They started snapping at each other over small things. A disagreement about paint colors became a fight. A missed call turned into accusations of avoidance. It came to a head in late August, exactly 1 year after they'd met. They were at Wareem's house, reviewing construction bids for the Busan Center. Nora mentioned the Seoul position had reached out again, offering even better terms. Director level, research budget, full autonomy. "Are you considering it?" Wareem asked, voice tight. "I'm just telling you they called. Why are you being defensive?" "Because every time things get difficult, you mention Seoul, like you're keeping an escape route open." Nora's eyes flashed. "That's not fair. I turned them down twice already." "But you keep the door open. Keep the option available. In case what? In case this doesn't work out? In case I'm not enough? Don't put words in my mouth." "Then tell me what you're thinking." His voice rose. "We've been circling this for months. The therapy, the preparation, all of it pointing toward this one thing. But we haven't tried. We keep finding excuses to wait. And I think you're as scared as I am. Scared it won't work. Scared I'm fundamentally broken." "That's not true." "Isn't it? Be honest, Nora. Completely honest. Are you sure you can do this? Are you sure 6 months from now, a year from now, you won't wake up and realize you've sacrificed your entire career and your physical well-being for a man who can't give you a normal relationship?" She stepped back like he'd slapped her. "Is that really what you think of me, after everything? I think you're human. I think eventually you'll realize what you've given up, and you'll resent me for it." "You're doing it again," Nora said, voice shaking. "Pushing me away before I can leave, making it my choice so you don't have to be vulnerable. I'm protecting both of us." "You're protecting yourself," she was yelling now. You're so convinced you're unlovable that you're sabotaging us before we even get a real chance. And you know what? I'm tired of fighting your fear. I'm tired of proving myself over and over. Maybe you're right. Maybe I should take the Seoul job. At least there I'd be wanted without conditions. The words hung between them, sharp and final. If that's what you want, Woram said, voice flat, take it, live your life, find someone normal. Maybe I will. Nora grabbed her bag and left. Woram listened to her car drive away, felt the house settle into its familiar emptiness. He'd done it again. Pushed away the one person who made him believe in possibility. 2 weeks passed, the longest 2 weeks of Wareem's life. He threw himself into work, approved designs, attended meetings remotely. But everything felt hollow without Nora. Minsu had a session scheduled. His mother brought him, and the boy's face fell when he saw only the therapist, not Nora. "Where's Miss Nora?" Minsu asked. His speech had improved dramatically, nearly age-appropriate now. "She's not here today," the therapist said gently. Minsu's face crumpled. He refused to participate, sat in the corner and cried. "I want Miss Nora. Need Miss Nora." His mother called Woram, desperate. "He's regressing, won't eat, won't talk, just asks for Nora constantly. Do you know where she is?" Woram's chest tightened. "I'll find her," he called. No answer. Texted. Nothing. Drove to her apartment. She wasn't there. Asked her colleagues. They said she'd taken emergency leave. Didn't say where. Panic set in. What if she'd gone to Lagos? What if she'd left for Seoul? What if he'd pushed her away for good? He called her aunt in Lagos. "Have you heard from Nora?" "Not in a week. Why? Is something wrong?" He called Seoul National Hospital. "Has Dr. Okoro accepted the director position?" "We're still waiting for her decision, sir." She hadn't left, but she also wasn't anywhere he could find her. On day 16, his doorbell rang at 2 in the morning. Wareem stumbled to the door, heart racing. Opened it to find Nora standing there, soaked from rain, eyes red from crying. "I went to Jeju," she said without preamble. "Spent 2 weeks sitting on a beach, thinking, trying to decide if I should stay or go. If loving you is brave or stupid." "Nora!" "Let me finish." Her voice was steady despite the tears. "I have been running my whole life, from my father leaving, from my mother dying, from anything that felt permanent, and when things got hard with you, my instinct was to run again. Take the Seoul job, start fresh, avoid the pain of trying and failing." She stepped closer, rain dripping onto his floor. "But here's what I realized. Running doesn't protect me from pain. It guarantees it. Because the only thing worse than trying and failing with you would be not trying at all. Not knowing if we could have made this work." "I pushed you away," Woram said, voice breaking. "I was so afraid you'd leave that I made it happen first." "I know, and I'm angry about it. You hurt me badly, but I also understand why." She took his hand. "We're both terrified. This is scary and hard, and there are no guarantees. But Wareem, I love you. I love you enough to risk everything. The question is, do you love me enough to stop protecting yourself and let me in? Really in." He pulled her inside, wrapped her in his arms, felt her shake against him. "I'm so sorry. I love you so much it terrifies me. The thought of losing you, of hurting you, it makes me want to run too." "Then let's be terrified together. Let's try and maybe fail, but at least we'll know we were brave enough to try." They stood there holding each other, rain pounding the windows, both crying, both choosing courage over fear. "Minsu's been asking for you," Woram said. "He's regressed. Won't talk, won't eat. Just asks for you." "I'll go to him tomorrow." She pulled back, looked at his face. "But tonight, I need to know. Are we really doing this? Are we committed? Because I can't keep having one foot out the door. Either we're all in, or we end this now." "I'm all in," Woram said. "Completely. No more pushing you away. No more protecting myself. I want to try. I want everything with you, whatever that looks like." "Even if the physical part doesn't work the way we hope?" "Even then," Especially then. Because, Nora, I've learned something these past 16 days without you. Nothing else matters if I don't have you. Not the fear, not the condition, not what other people think. I just need you. She kissed him, desperate and certain. Take me to your bedroom. His heart stopped. Nora, we don't have to. I know we don't have to. I want to. We've done the preparation, the therapy, all of it. And yes, I'm scared. But I'm more scared of waiting forever and never knowing. Please, trust me, trust us. They went to his bedroom, both shaking. What followed was tender and awkward, and required constant communication. Adjustments and pauses, moments of frustration, times when Warim almost stopped out of fear. But Nora guided him with patience and certainty, reminding him they were in this together. It wasn't perfect. It took time, required the medical interventions Dr. Park had recommended, demanded vulnerability from both of them. But slowly, carefully, impossibly, it worked. Not easy, not standard, but theirs. Afterward, lying tangled together, both crying with relief and joy, Nora said, "We did it. You did it. You believed when I couldn't." "No, we did it. Together." She kissed his shoulder. "And Wurim? It's going to get easier. We'll learn what works, what doesn't. We'll keep communicating, keep adjusting. This is just the beginning." September brought new beginnings. The Busan Therapy Center broke ground, a beautiful building that was pure Wurim, all light and purpose. Nora officially accepted the permanent position at Daewoo and started planning the Lagos Sister Center. Minsu came to their first public event, the groundbreaking ceremony. He walked straight to Wurim and Nora, hugged them both. "You're back, both of you. You're happy now?" "So happy," Nora said, crying. "Thanks to you, buddy." They got engaged in October, on the beach at Gwangali, where they'd eaten hotteok after Christmas. Wurim's proposal was simple, honest, perfect. "I want forever with you, whatever that looks like. I want to build centers in Busan and Lagos, and anywhere else that needs them. I want to wake up next to you and argue about color schemes, and watch you make miracles with music. Marry me." "Yes, 1,000 times yes." The wedding was planned for May, cherry blossom season. Small and intimate, just the people who mattered. But first, they had work to do. November brought a call that changed everything. "Dr. Park," her voice excited. "Nora, I need you to come in. Today, if possible. There's something we need to discuss." At the clinic, Dr. Park looked at them both with barely contained joy. "I ran your blood work from last month's checkup. Nora, you're pregnant." The world stopped. "What?" Nora's voice was barely a whisper. "About 6 weeks along. Healthy, strong heartbeat. Congratulations." Wurim couldn't breathe. A baby. They were having a baby. Something he'd never dared to dream about. But Nora looked terrified. "Dr. Park, can we talk? Privately?" After Wurim stepped out, Nora's hands shook. "Is it safe? Given Wurim's condition, the genetics, what are the risks?" "The condition isn't typically hereditary," Dr. Park said gently. "But even if it were, you'd love that child exactly as they are. Just like you love Wurim. Being different doesn't mean being less." Nora cried. "I'm terrified, not of the condition, but of being a mother. My mother was everything to me. What if I can't be that for our child?" "Your mother gave you the tools. Now you use them. And Nora, you won't be alone. You have Wurim." When Nora came out, Wurim knew immediately something was deeply wrong. "What did she say? Are you okay? Is something—" "I'm pregnant," Nora said, and watched his face transform with joy, then confusion when he saw her tears. "Wurim, I'm terrified. What if I'm a terrible mother? What if our child has your condition and suffers? What if—" He pulled her close. "Then we'll love them exactly as they are. We'll teach them they're perfect. We'll build a world where being different is celebrated, not feared. Together." They told close friends and family, started preparing. But as December approached, Nora began having complications. Spotting, cramping. concerns that made Dr. Park watchful. "You need to reduce stress," Dr. Park said. "The center launch, the wedding planning, it's too much." They postponed the wedding. Nora cut back her hours, but the bleeding continued. On December 23rd, exactly 1 year after they'd met, Nora woke up in excruciating pain. Wareem rushed her to the hospital, holding her hand while she cried, terrified they were losing everything. In the emergency room, doctors rushed around. Tests, scans, urgent voices. Wareem wasn't allowed in, could only pace the waiting room, praying to gods he didn't believe in. Hours passed. Dawn came, Christmas Eve morning. Finally, a doctor emerged. Her face was unreadable. "Mr. Kim?" Wareem stood, legs shaking. "Is she okay? The baby?" The doctor's expression shifted into something strange. Not grief, not quite relief. Something else entirely. "Mr. Kim, there's something you need to know. About the pregnancy, about Nora's condition. We ran extensive tests and discovered something unexpected. Something that changes everything." "What? Just tell me." "Perhaps you should sit down." "No. Tell me if my fiancé and my child are alive." The doctor took a breath. "They're alive. Both of them. But Mr. Kim, there's not one baby. The ultrasound shows—" The waiting room doors burst open. Nora's aunt ran in, having flown emergency from Lagos. Behind her, unexpectedly, were Wareem's parents. His mother's face was tear-streaked, his father's stern expression cracking. "Wareem," his mother said. "We heard. We came. Please, let us be here for you." Everything was converging. A year of healing, of building, of choosing courage. And now, in this moment, everything hung in balance. The doctor looked between them all, and what she said next would change their lives forever. "Mr. Kim, the bleeding was from a subchorionic hematoma. It's resolved now. But when we did the emergency scan, we found something extraordinary. Nora isn't carrying one baby. She's carrying twins, identical twins. And Mr. Kim, based on the genetic markers we're seeing, we believe—" But before she could finish, the monitor behind her sparked. The power flickered. And somewhere in the hospital, an alarm began to scream.